Yep.
You couldn't hear it.
Good evening. Joe, would you be kind enough to do the roll call, please?
Mr. Livingston?
Here.
Ms. Giuliani?
Here.
Mr. Tolmer?
Here.
Ms. Bellamore?
Here.
And Ms. Simmerl is absent.
Okay, we don't have anybody that's signed in. I would take a motion to adopt the minutes from March 24th, 2025.
Make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Melissa, okay, any further discussion? Comments? All in favor of adopting signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Carried. Any new business? Okay. Under old business, I'm gonna take care of the item number 2 first, and then we'll let Brandy do her thing. Item number 2 is review and consider the Chapala Corner lot plan of lots revised subdivision application that reverses the 2024 lot consolidation plan of number 1 Ewing Avenue and 340 Preston Road. And make a recommendation to council. There was information in the packets regarding this. There was the revised plan and a letter regarding from the engineers regarding the review of the application. Joe, you have anything to add?
No, a couple of little things though. On the plan, you'll see middle column right at the top, there's 2 notes on the plan. Note 2 is essentially we're reversing the lot consolidation that was done last year. If you remember, this property was 2 independent single-family homes. Lots were combined. A requirement of lot consolidation was that the front house that fronts Presley Road was to be demolished. The applicants are here. There's tenants in that front house that the applicants have been unable to evict, and essentially they're not pursuing that path anymore. So the goal is to put it back the way it was so that the property could be sold. So as you can see on the note, it puts it back to before the lot consolidation. Granted, it's a smaller lot with that doesn't essentially conform to today's zoning requirements, but as the conditions of the lot consolidation were meant, there's no requirement to send the applicants to the zoning hearing board for relief. The solicitor has given the grace for that. So with that in mind, the engineer's letter says that it meets the borough's requirements for a favorable determination. So we're asking the planning commission, if you guys don't have any input, provide out the county don't have any input, who's doing their review also, to recommend the borough council to kind of put it back the way it was, and Chabalas can move on with as they wish.
Yeah, I don't have any issue. I'm just curious what the issue is. What's the eviction have to do with, like, the connection between you have to go back to where it was so you can pursue the eviction?
No.
Do you want to speak to that?
No, we're probably gonna sell the house.
Okay. Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, we're not gonna consolidate since we can't get them out.
Yeah.
Who knows, it could take another 6 months. We don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So
but
it
you're
just
8 months
makes the
in,
house
so-
easier to sell.
How many months are you into your eviction?
We're 8 months
8
going on
months.
9.
Yeah.
May,
So it's a
May
matter
4th
of,
it starts
you
now.
can split it back up, so now you can sell the house.
We can sell the house.
Gotcha,
Yeah, right now, yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
We want to
that,
sell both houses.
right, okay, that makes sense. I just didn't really understand why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because as it sits right now, it's both of their homes are combined. So
Yeah.
their primary residence and
Right,
this rental
it's
home.
one piece of property.
Yes.
Understood. That's fine. Cool.
Okay, anybody else got any questions, comments? Okay. I would take a motion to make a recommendation to the Borough Council that this proceed.
I'll make a motion to proceed.
I'll second.
Okay. discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Oh.
Question? I just have one question. So, whenever we go to sell the 340, in the original thing that it goes back, there's a, what's it called, an easement?
Easement. Yeah.
There's an easement. Jack Chabola needed Gary to sign the easement so he could buy that house, because I don't know what the borough had decided.
I don't remember seeing any easements on your plans.
Oh, and these plans?
Correct.
No,
Maybe that was,
it was a separate document. When Jack, we lived at 1 Ewing Avenue, when Jack bought 340, and I had to sign an easement for him to be able to buy the house.
This is the first I have any knowledge of it.
okay.
Like I said,
One-
I should have maybe raised with
I guess-
Landis.
I guess our question, will we be able to sell the house when you go back to the original lot?
Jack sold it to you without any issue.
Right, okay, that's true.
Okay.
And do you need a copy of, Mr. Laegas sent, the new,
Did you start circulating that for signatures? Is that what that is?
no, that's what it's for, so who do I have to get? You,
And I'll take it, I'll pass it around.
okay.
Yeah, and we'll go from there. So,
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Yep, that's all I need.
Thank you.
And then we'll be on May 12th council
We
agenda.
will be, and is that also at 6?
7.
So,
All right.
thank you so much.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through this.
Yeah.
Well, it was a learning experience.
Boy, for sure.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, we will go back, item number 1, downtown zoning district update. Randy, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Take care.
Before you guys leave, my biscuit. So, do you have a blue pen?
It's blue. I want blue.
I wrote that.
Jill, I told you, I don't sign things on Mondays.
Oh, we don't have to sign something.
You're easier to get sometimes than Mike.
It's already Tuesday in part of the world.
But not here.
You're good, you're good. Let's take advantage of seeing Mike.
Ready? Okay. So, as you all know, we had our charrette earlier this month. Well attended, had good participation, I thought. And in terms of what we heard, we did summarize the information. I fear that when I sent it to Joe, though, only one of the spreadsheets in my Excel document copied over. So you probably don't have the use table.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, so my apologies. When you make a PDF out of an Excel document, you have to make sure you say all worksheets, and I forgot to click that button. So my apologies on that. So I will pass these down. There are 3 separate sheets.
Yeah, I think all we got was this.
Yeah, and I think you got the parking, which had just one comment. So, again, I'm sorry for that.
We should have 2 sheets.
So there should be 3. There's one that has highlights, there's a stapled sheet, and then there's one that says suggested, or Bridgeville comments at the top. Got it. Okay, so the one that has the highlight on it, the table, these are, the one that's a single sheet. These were the results from the boards where we had the different design standards. So you can see the number of people that voted. I just highlighted things that got more than 10 votes. And I used this as well as our previous discussions to draft the sample design guidelines, which you should have gotten in your packet, which we can talk about in a little bit. The stapled sheet is the use table. So again, the highlighted ones on the second page were things that got over 10 votes that we did not have on our use table that we discussed at Planning Commission. As you remember, we put all of the uses that are currently allowed in the mixed use district on the boards for people to vote on. So two things that did get over 10 votes were high technology industries and hospitals, which we can have discussion on, but we have talked about how these probably aren't the most appropriate for downtown, especially a hospital, takes up a lot of space,
Does
a
it
lot
mean
of
like a
parking.
hospital or like a Med Express?
This
What's
is
the
a
difference?
hospital, yeah. So medical clinic, which is further down the list, would be like a Med Express.
Okay.
Before you go any further, just a question. This,
Mhm.
we have like sort of a dark salmon, a light salmon.
So yeah, the salmon
And
colors,
the dark salmon's 22, so I'm figuring, okay, the dark salmon must mean big things, but then back here, no.
it does not.
So, what's
Yeah.
it mean?
So the salmon color were the uses that we discussed that potentially adding to the use table that currently aren't on there. So if you remember, the boards at the meeting had all of the uses that were currently allowed in your mixed use district, and then we added some of these ones that were in the pinkish color, because they aren't currently in your use table, but we talked about they might be something that people might talk about going into a downtown. The vape shop, the scope games, those are things that we didn't necessarily want, but we decided to put everything on that we had talked about. The reason why they're two different colors is because when we made the boards, we wanted to differentiate, because you'll see there's gray, white, then the pinky colors. The only reason they're different colors was so that people could easily see what they were voting for. The yellow highlights are the ones that got more than 10 votes for things that we hadn't really talked about including. So from the existing use table, it was the high-tech industries, hospitals, and then from our added list, it was makerspace. So I wanted to find out everyone's thoughts on finalizing the use table. If there's anything that you see that we need to add that we hadn't been discussing previously.
Can I just confirm my understanding of something? This is, are we going to actively go look for companies that fit these spaces, or
If
we
you want
just?
to, you can, the borough can. But this is not a marketing plan, this is a zoning ordinance, so these will be the uses that are allowed in your downtown.
These are the things that we want or
Want to
don't
allow.
want, want to allow.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I'm just, that there's a little element of,
That's a separate process. If you
Okay.
want to, it's not a marketing plan, it's a zoning ordinance, so it's outside of this process.
So you're adding these three?
No, I'm not, I just wanted to highlight them to show you. The discussion is, do you want to add?
So Brent, I don't remember who was working at this particular station, but was there any conversation from people who were throwing dots all over these as to like
There's
what
a
their
lot of
thoughts?
conversation going on,
Yeah.
but nothing.
Nothing specific as to why we need a big hospital in
Correct.
downtown Bridgeville? Okay.
Now here, not to be out of line, but like, if one guy put a lot of dots
And
on
dots.
that one thing,
Yeah,
how,
because how do you know?
Yeah, and then how's
Because
that-
people could,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that brew pub is skewed, because
There was an ending of
I know that.
sell your dots.
I know for a fact it's skewed a little.
so that's what I'm getting, is like to be marrying ourselves to
But I
that
mean,
number.
I just wanted
One
two
guy,
guys.
really?
I mean, but there was
Really, what's a hospital?
there was a lot for brew
That
pub.
was the one that got the most.
And I'm just using that as an example. There was a lot of people who put that on there, but it was a lot of people
Put multiple.
I
put
mean, it's-
multiples, there was a lot of people
Yes.
put that on there.
Yes.
I don't know, so I was gonna waste 11 on a hospital. You know, I don't know who put it, if somebody really wants a hospital, I'm gonna put all my eggs in there.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if anybody did that, if that's the case.
Yeah, I doubt people did the hospital.
And again, there were, 20 people there, not 1,000 people.
Right.
Well, if,
So-
Dan was working that
Dan was
station.
working that station.
So if they didn't ask him, like, Dan, what's the difference between hospital
We had the
and,
definitions there, he did
Medical-
show, he did.
Yeah.
like, he
He
had
did-
them.
he had the
But if somebody
definitions.
didn't ask,
If somebody did not,
And they
we
just-
told them they were there
yeah.
to read what the different terminology meant.
I
So
mean, we
people
can't-
knew that, whether they read them or not, I don't know. In my opinion, a hospital is probably not the most appropriate use for a downtown. Again, this was an exercise to get people involved, it
Right.
doesn't mean that this is the be-all, end-all. I just wanted to highlight some of the things that got,
You know, I mean, a hospital's very,
I mean, it would take up your whole downtown.
I would say it's very unrealistic.
And unrealistic that it's gonna come here.
Yeah.
Because they need a lot of space and a lot of parking.
I mean, you got a hospital, I mean, they just put a children's hospital over in South Fayette.
Yes.
And, they have, I mean, that's a whole area they had to develop and,
Yes.
there was space. That being said, when you look at this whole downtown area, we have a big vacant, a potential
Yes,
area to be developed.
yes.
Could you put a hospital there?
Small, maybe,
I don't know.
but it's probably unrealistic.
Right.
I don't see anything wrong with pharmacy, like the Rite Aid, I feel like.
A pharmacy is more than just a pharmacy. I mean, if you have a little
Grocery store.
Right, usually, a perfect example is like the one up in, corner of like Drake Road in South Park. And there was that little strip, there's a hardware store, and there's the old pharmacy there, but it's like a neighborhood pharmacy. Yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with pharmacy. Pharmacy is a good thing, I think.
Yeah.
Don't we have one of those?
What?
We
Do we
do.
have one of those?
Well,
We
we have
did it
one at
with
the end
the
of
10
town.
numbers.
We have a Rite Aid. There used to be one right here where, Blair's Pharmacy used to be there forever.
Okay, so what am I missing? They having it at the end of the town is not what we want to do?
No, I'm just saying, I don't think it's a bad thing to have a pharmacy. We have them now, but, if you have another pharmacy in town, I guess the other thing is, when people think of pharmacies now, do they picture
Think
the
of
Point
marijuana.
Pharmacy, or do they think of a CVS?
Well, and I mean, the day of the family pharmacy is gone.
I think
It's all
Yeah, I think that's,
corporate.
It's the Rite Aid's, the CVS, well, Rite Aid's
Yeah.
good bankrupt, but
yeah.
CVS.
Pharmacies are not, just because it's medicine and people who like medicine, there's some serious issues in that world.
Mhm.
And not too long ago, a few months ago, we walked into the Rite Aid. And very frankly, I was looking for some Reese's peanut butter cups, and that's
Oh,
where
yeah.
I was, and so I knew they were in there. But the place was just jam-packed with a mini grocery store and no people.
Yeah.
No people. And I mean, I don't know when you expect people at a pharmacy, maybe they have like crazy hours in the morning or the evening, but there was not one single person in there. They did have Reese's peanut butter cups, so that was the good news, but I-
Harsh white light.
I don't see pharmacy as something that we just should all get all enthused about.
I'm not saying it, I mean, I agree with you, by the way, it just, when you think of, it's like, which pharmacy do you want? There's two images of a pharmacy. The one that's the CVS, Rite Aid, big box, with a big parking lot, is very different than Blair Pharmacy that we had in our town back in the day.
So, let
My
me,
third option was with a soda fountain. Really good retro.
yeah. This, list is everything
Yes.
that it's not the list that we created that pulled out. some-
Pulled out, sorry, yeah, this was everything from the meeting.
Okay. What's everybody's thoughts? I mean.
So do we take, like, if there's stuff on there that's naughty, like it's no-goes, like warehouses, do we look at that and say, all right, let's start easy and say, we don't want that in our zoning?
Well, we already kind of did that, we removed a lot of those
Okay.
from our earlier discussion, if you remember. we have a pared down list of this. And, I mean, the things that got a lot of votes were all from your list, except for those couple that I highlighted.
Right,
Now, there were some that were on your list that got little votes as well,
right.
but again, this was an exercise with a limited number of people. So this is just a guide. I think our discussions about what is appropriate and what, you know, the thoughts are for the borough and keeping the downtown viable, should also weigh in.
We're not intending to do a survey, a public survey on this topic, is that right?
We can if you want. I can do an electronic survey, if you want to gather more feedback, and how this will, I don't know. I mean, we can do it. I don't know how many people would complete it, because this is gonna be a lot of information, and they're not gonna have me there to explain it.
Right,
to them.
yeah.
I would be shocked if you got what they say in the books when you're studying business, is a statistically significant
Oh, you would
sample
not.
size.
You would not.
I just don't think you're gonna get that.
Joe, you have a limit, or Randy, you have a limit, like, like a number of businesses? Like, you can only have so many something.
You cannot do that, but you can say, like a lot of people do this for adult uses, that you can't have an
That's,
adult use within 1,000 feet of another adult use.
so that's
Share
kind of where I was
by
going, because I
limits.
remember when I took my government class, 15 years ago, whatever, there was, you know, like, I guess they called it undesirable businesses.
Correct.
And you weren't allowed to have, like, you couldn't have two of one in a town or something.
I have not seen that. I mean, you could run that by your solicitor if that's something you're interested in, but I have not seen communities do that. But I'm just,
Because I was like,
We talked about doing the vape shops thing.
well, because a vape shop is technically an adult business, wouldn't it? Because you have to be 18 or older to purchase.
not according to the definition of adult business, no. Vape shop is different.
But I mean, we could do no two similar businesses within 500 feet or something,
You cannot allow vape shop.
And we've
Well,
already
it's
got
hard to
3
say.
too many vape shops.
Really?
Just saying. I mean, it's just, why, if we could say, no, you can't, here's a use that you can't have, that would be one of mine, right up at your vape shops.
Yeah. I'm just curious, yeah, because, I mean, yeah, we sit there and we say we don't like that, but we don't want to sit there and say you can't do that. You hate to be the person to sit there and go, we're just gonna say no, when it's a legit business. But,
There's a whole world of towns that say no to all kinds of different businesses. So we just have to ask ourselves, do we feel comfortable enough setting the bar, or just starting the bar down here and
Yeah.
hoping that the growth gets us to a point where we can get higher on the bar? I mean, we could debate that forever and ever, but I
Yeah.
think that that's part of the problem that I felt that we had with that, was that there's a whole lot of stuff on there that I'm looking at, and you gotta be absolutely kidding me.
Yeah.
This is something we want in Bridgeville, question mark? I mean, why is it even on the
And we're not
sheet?
sitting there saying that any of these businesses, we're not saying that you can't have them, not have them in Bridgeville. We just don't want them on Main Street.
You can't,
Yeah.
you can't zone out a use completely,
Right,
and that's illegal, but you can put it in certain districts
right.
and not allow it in others. This is a project about your downtown, this is what you want to see in your downtown district. So you can leave uses off, for sure, 100%. And that's what I would recommend you do, is you narrow down the uses that you think are appropriate for downtown and leave the other uses for the other districts.
But we'll need you to create a definition for them so that they don't.
Yeah, for
fall.
sure, 100%. So any uses that we add that don't currently have a definition in your ordinance, or if the definition in your ordinance needs to be updated, that'll be part of the amendment. So the amendment will have different sections. One section will be the boundary of what the district is, so it'll refer to your map. Another section will be what uses are allowed. Another section will be definitions that need to be added or updated. Another one will be if you want to add any design guidelines, and then dimensional requirements and signs. So there will be different sections of your amendment, but it'll be all one amendment.
How are we handling these uses? It's still not, I'm not following it.
So we have to make a decision on what you want to include in your use table. So do you want to stay with the list we had before? And I'm sorry, I should have brought that with me. I can send that around for everyone. We don't have to decide for sure tonight. The question is, do you want to stay with the list that we discussed at our previous meeting and kind of came up with what we thought was appropriate for downtown? Or do you want to adjust it at all based on anything you heard at the meeting?
Because wasn't it essentially, we worked through that and we were hoping that the town was like.
Would agree.
And I think
Unless
for
you
the
push
most
it.
part, we did get agreement from the town. I mean,
For the
there's a
most
few
part,
outliers.
There's a couple of,
You know, I want to skill gaming. Okay, we're not,
yeah.
yeah, good.
There's a couple, like the hospital. and things
Yeah.
like that. But in general, I think most people would agree, or agree.
Yeah, it wasn't like people showed up and just, oh, you know what, we want everybody wants, people want the vape shop.
Right.
I apologize for keep using it as an example, but it's like a blaring on.
Because anyway, like, if you use like the charrette, it's like, testing the temperature of the town, it was like, and if you dumb down this project, it was like, you get a use table, 20 people say light manufacturing should be on Main Street, and we got one dot. So, all right, so everyone's thinking the same way in
Yeah.
respect to that. Warehouse is 0 right now, a kennel, you know, and that's where we said that this project was needed, was because of that. So if you keep it base level, it
Yeah.
kind of
It
speaks.
kind of confirms what we've already talked about.
I agree.
I think we just go with our initial list. that we
Even like
developed.
light manufacturing, if you look at like Shaw's, they have a storefront and they have a retail store
You used to.
used to. What happened there?
I don't know.
They don't have a retail store there
And then
anymore?
they closed up in
They
December.
closed.
Oh, okay.
Because they're still there, but
Yeah.
they don't have the store open anymore since Christmas.
Huh. Okay.
That's what was making Shaw nice, because it was,
Yeah,
because now it's just a gun factory that takes two huge buildings on Main Street.
That's something we need to have a conversation about, because that's one of the reasons why we didn't, when they applied for that, it was because of the retail store in front.
I'd have to look. I can look up.
Another conversation.
Okay. So, we take this information for what it's worth and kind of stick with what we've previously decided. And, I mean, for the most part, I mean, a lot of this kind of confirms loosely what we've already talked about, with the exception of you know, the hospital and the high-tech industries.
For stuff like makerspace and business incubator, is there like a better term for that, or is there like something that, is it called, like you're gonna put brew pub on a zoning thing, can we put like distillery / brew pubs / winery, something like,
There's usually descriptions between eating and drinking establishments that goes into,
Well, it's all in your definitions.
Like some-
Everything's gonna be defined.
okay,
So, in terms of terminology, we can call it whatever you want.
okay.
Brew pub is pretty standard, but I have seen, yes, distillery
Because I know there's, you know, you don't wanna sit there and say, oh, a brew pub, or a brewer, like a craft brewery. And all of a sudden it blows up and goes from a 3-barrel system to a
Yeah, and you put that.
40-barrel system.
You put that in your supplemental regulations or in your definition.
You know, like hitchhikers in Mount Lebanon, and then they went down to Sharpsburg. You know, the operation down in Sharpsburg will not go into Mount Lebanon. It's cool, but it's not gonna fit in Mount Lebanon.
Yeah, so everything will be defined clearly, and all of your terminology will be the same. So when we refer to it in your use table, it will match what's in the definition section. So you know exactly where to go to look to read about what something is and what it means.
Yeah.
and then what about, Mike was right on point with that 500 test in there?
For like,
For like the vape shops?
I mean, if you're, unless you're gonna, well, I mean, not just vape shops, but like anything on there that you might wanna sit there and say, that's, you know, we don't wanna say no, but you don't wanna have it.
Why don't
But to
we
Betsy's,
say-
but to Betsy's point, just say no.
Just say no, I would just fit off.
You know,
Yeah,
like
just
the-
say, no, we have a vape shop, they're grandfathered in,
Right, you can't make them leave.
you're not gonna know, so you know,
So
guess
I
what?
would just leave it off for use to.
Keep them glassy up in the main street and then the rest of,
Don't we have a second one now?
do we?
One was going in across, but then there's a release sign in the window, so I'm concerned that it's, not concerned, hopeful that
Yeah.
it's not
In a
coming.
good one.
And then there's a
Concerned
marijuana dispensary that's going in the LaBella Bean building.
So,
And I hate to say it, but it's like, you're seeing like all like the little towns like Oakdale, Heidelberg, and us, all we're getting is vape shops.
Yeah.
So in Heidelberg, Big has a vape shop with it. And then Moore's Hardware in Oakdale is now a vape shop. And it's like,
Yeah.
so it's like all our trend is vape shops, so.
I mean, it's probably cyclical though, at some point this,
Sure,
you know,
but to
they'll
limit
go away.
them would
Yeah.
be.
Well,
But
that's
how
a way
Doesn't
too, may I say, a way too laissez-faire attitude, they'll go away eventually.
They will.
Well, they might, but I think we should establish, if that's not a use that we want in the
Right.
community, even though there might be one or two guys here, if we had rules in place that they couldn't be here, I don't know, I would have been voting for them. So if we either need to decide we are or are not gonna do that kind of thing, and then if their business eventually goes away, it can't be replaced with another one.
And we're not saying that you can't pull in Bridgeville.
Yeah, I just think we
It's
just,
just not in the downtown.
not that
We
district.
don't want four in this
Correct.
one block, that's where
Yeah,
we're going.
well, and, you know, maybe,
I'm more in favor of restricting within a distance.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, I feel like, my thought on this is, I would prefer more to have defined design standards for what downtown looks like, and then I don't care as much about what the business is, as much. Because they're probably making money,
yeah,
and we don't have a vacant building because of that vape shop.
Disagree with you, so there you are.
But so you're gonna write the definition of retail space to like specifically exclude vape shops?
Yes.
Okay.
Or define.
Or we can add a definition for what a vape
It
shop
isn't excluded, we're gonna specifically define
Well,
vape
maybe
shop, so it isn't just
isn't
retail.
just
Retail.
So it's like, okay,
Well, but there's a retail on here.
Yeah, but, we can put in the retail definition does not include vape shop.
Correct.
what
The
about,
whole bookstore isn't just retail.
what about a tobacco shop,
We can add whatever, one.
a cigar shop, how do
You
you,
could go on and on,
yeah.
yes. Mhm.
Are we in favor of cigars, but not
I don't,
vaping?
that's I'm just, you know.
yeah, well, I'm.
That's where you
I'm
down
kind-
cigars.
Get down a big rabbit hole.
Yeah,
We've had this conversation.
I'm more inclined to limit, you know, by distance, you know, no two shall be within 600 feet, 1,000 feet, whatever, 500 feet, I don't know what that distance is, but I'd be more inclined to do something like that, and that way it kind of limits what's in the business district. Like Melissa said, I mean, I went into Glassy.
Keep it classy.
Keep it classy. Very nice, people inside are, you know.
They're a
very
franchise,
nice,
they're not like it's not like a one-off shop.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a nice looking place, it's well lit, and, you know, it's a storefront that's there, it's, you know, paying taxes and.
It's like the tattoo shop, the guy there, he's an artist.
Yeah,
I mean, he's very good at what he does.
Right.
He's a legend in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, people come all over to get their ink done, to see him. You know, it's not like, I mean, a tattoo shop is not like, some people I look at say, tattoos, but other people are like, that's really cool. So it depends on what your definition of
yeah.
what you like.
And again, I'd be tempted to limit the number of tattoo shops.
Mhm.
They won't mind us doing that either.
No, well, you know, and I mean, there's something to be said for doing that, you know, but, I'm not the only one here, you know, talking about this. I think it's something that the planning commission needs to decide on for ourselves. And so, I mean, we wanna limit the number of, or by distance.
I'm more inclined to do the distance thing. I know what you're saying, because I get it. And
If you're gonna encourage that or allow that to stay on Main Street, then you're not getting what I'm saying at all. Those are those instantaneous, people get reactions to kinds of places.
right.
Right on.
So
the
which ones are you, just the vape shops, or what, anything else that you?
Well, the vape shops for sure, but even I haven't looked through these, I've been in one of them, and actually it was a mistake that I walked in the door. But I've been in them quite a few years ago.
Which ones?
No, I mean
Oh,
vape shops.
oh, okay, gotcha.
Or the equivalent thereof.
Yeah,
And it's just, again, you can talk as long as you want
Mhm.
about what they're all about and what they do and how they do it. I would find it really interesting to see what their expectations are of their shop and who their clients / customers are. To me, I have, like I said, zero comfort level on a main drag, especially,
Okay.
that we're sitting here trying to figure out how do we upgrade that,
How
how
to
do we
make
get
our Main
more,
Street
and
the
then
way
we're
it's
gonna throw
supposed to be.
vape shops in. I just have and every time I walk down there and go by, however many of them are in a row, just
I,
makes
I,
me go mad.
I see your point.
So what I can do is, in the interest of time, I'll send around the list that we talked about before. I can add, these couple other things, and you can vote, via email, and we can do, it that way. Or if you wanna make a decision tonight.
We can do it tonight. I mean,
Justine's not here.
I'm gonna side with Bitsy on this.
All right.
I was, it's not like we're saying you can't have them in town, just not on Main Street. We're kind of like going hard on this Main Street, what we wanna see, we spent all that time working on our comprehensive plan, and the overall theme of the comprehensive plan was, Bridgeville, charm, Main Street, it got drilled into our heads. Every
Yes.
meeting,
Every meeting that was.
every meeting we went to, it was what sets us apart from every other town in the area, and it was our Main Street. And it is it's what our jewel is, and we need to promote that the best way we can.
So now we have 2 and 2.
You got
Justine?
I guess I'm fine with it too. I mean, it's all about trying to,
Eliminating it from the downtown?
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we're not gonna eliminate it from,
You can't eliminate
Bridgeville.
it from Bridgeville.
I mean, it's gonna
If
be,
you get
it could
sued,
be
then
a,
they'll be
yeah.
able to go wherever.
And the
they
fact
want.
that we have one already,
yeah,
so
yeah.
hopefully they'll do a very good job and be a long time business, and we'll have it here
Yeah.
for everybody's glassy needs.
Okay, so I'll get that list back around to you just to confirm everything.
Okay.
And then, the other, if you look at your agenda, which Joe sent to you, the next item, next bullet down is parking. The recommendation is, no parking requirements for downtown district. So there are several ways you can go. You currently have in your mixed-use district, if you're within 600
Which
feet
page are
of
you
a.
looking at? This one?
It's the agenda.
Oh, Jen, I'm sorry.
Mike, are you paying any attention at all?
Come on, keep it classy.
Come on. Keep up. I said look at your agenda.
You said send me 3 pieces of paper.
Just work here.
This is your
There's
packet.
one that says agenda really big at the top.
This is what it looks like on the front, Mike.
Oh, I gotta turn a page.
Yeah, and then,
Mercy on the guy.
It's too fun.
don't make me come over to another page.
I got it. It was behind that piece of paper.
Okay, so the second bullet is parking. So what you currently have is, in your mixed-use district, is that you do not have to provide off-street parking if you're within 600 feet of a public parking lot. So that covers pretty much all of your downtown except for the potential development area at the north end of town. That part is not within 600 feet of a public parking lot. So the options could be that for just the downtown district, you don't require off-street parking, which is what a lot of towns do, because the downtown usually has public parking lots, which you have, on-street parking, so you just let people find parking. And you don't require people to provide on-site, off-street parking because the lots are, again, so small. Where do you put that parking? So that's the recommendation from me. There was a little bit of discussion at the charrette. One person said the north end businesses already have parking lots on their properties, but if that gets redeveloped into something else, then the parking lots go away. Increase the current 600 feet parking radius. Having a public parking garage would also increase parking options. Sure, but who's gonna pay for that? Increasing the 600 feet can get a little tricky because then you're going more into your mixed-use district and not just your downtown, so, that affects more than just downtown. Another person recommended removing parking standards entirely for downtown. And then another comment was to create a public parking lot in the north end to cover missing footage. That's complicated though, because that's private property the borough would have to buy. And
Well,
build
I mean-
parking lot. So what most places do is they don't require parking, off-street parking in downtowns.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's gonna happen 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, as far as development in the north end. My question is if we remove parking standards in the downtown district, what's the upside, what's the downside of doing that? I mean, obviously,
The upside is people don't have to provide parking with their business. The downside is, because there's no room on, now the north end is a different animal, because if it does become a development site, there is more space. But in your downtown, the lots aren't big enough, but they are currently covered by that 600 feet too, within your current regulation. The upside is, you have people, I don't really see it as something, because I believe most places are overparked. You look at these big seas of parking lots everywhere, people don't shop the way they used to. I know you want to make sure you have parking for if there's housing associated, but in downtowns, it's just really not.
Well,
In my opinion, it's
they
really
put all
not
this
needed.
parking in downtowns, they put all this parking in like this area, and people wanna park over here where they're shopping or where they're going.
You have lots, your
Yeah.
lots are spread out, you're not
Yeah.
clustered. You have one by La Belle Bean, you have one
Mhm.
down,
And if it was gonna be redeveloped, the developer's gonna,
and if
Yep.
the
Because they're
person,
business.
you leave it up to the developer. Yeah, you're not saying you can't put off-street parking. You leave it up to the developer to know how many parking spots they need, because they're not gonna build something that needs parking, that doesn't have parking, and then nobody buys it or comes to
Yeah.
it. So in a downtown, that's part of the upside too. You let the developer, they know what they need.
And we just had, we just
And
went
you'll
through
still
this.
have site plan review, it'll go through,
Right.
if there's a land development, it will go through your site plan review, so you can still provide comments on whatever gets developed there. But just requiring all this off-street parking is just, in my opinion, not necessary.
And we just went through this with
And you still have you still have standards for industrial and mixed use.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Leslie?
I have no problem with that at all.
He likes to walk.
Huh? I do like to walk. I very rarely park downtown.
Yeah.
So we're getting rid of
So I'm not a good,
parking authority, is that what we're
That's okay.
Mike starting another rumor. I'll be sure to let Deb know who's,
The bump up boss.
yeah, it's the bump out boss that wants to do away with parking authority and everything else.
If you can't find anywhere to park, it's because of Mike. Go see Mike. Okay, so signage, I think your existing regulations for your mixed-use district are pretty good, and they, you know, the people that voted for different types of signs, you know, are all allowed in your downtown. You do allow ground signs, monument signs, and, you know, there is billboards that are allowed within so many feet of I-79. I would recommend for the downtown district, you don't permit those types of signs. Ground signs, maybe especially again if something happens at the northern end, but you're really not gonna, you don't have space in your downtown to do a ground sign or, you know, monument sign, and you definitely don't want billboards.
We have a couple,
Monument sign.
not monuments, the pole sign.
The pole, pole signs are different. Yeah, pole signs are different than monument.
You're talking like the sandwich boards?
No,
No,
no, no,
no.
we're talking about like,
Monument
it's
signs
going
are
into Northwest Bank, you know, has the multiple businesses that are in the plaza.
Oh, gotcha.
Or there's one down here going into the roller ring plaza.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just a suggestion, we can leave them in there, but I would definitely recommend taking out billboards from downtown,
Do
obviously.
you think it's something worth looking at, like you go to the communities that you think they're like well planned out, I can catch, like, I don't know if it's like the municipal guy, I mean, like, I can tell what town got their ducks together by the height of the sheet sign in the town. Like, when I see the sheet sign at, like, no more than 10 feet, I can say this town
This town knows what they're
knows what they're doing.
and they're savvy enough to work with the developer to get what they
Yeah.
want.
So, like, I think, like, did you give any consideration to that?
Well, in terms of what's appropriate for downtown, I didn't like think about that specifically sheets, but,
But like any business, because like
Yeah.
I get these pole signs.
Yeah.
and
so, I did, and that's why I took out the ones that I did, but pole signs, you know, are another one that you could think about, might not be appropriate for downtown either. So what got the most votes were the awning, the, projecting signs that, you know, come out that have to be like, you know, 9 feet above the ground, and wall signs. Those are all pretty standard.
I had a projecting sign situation, and I hung my hat on it was existing, where it technically wasn't. The old Peacock Keller Law Office, where there's a dentist in there, Dr. Ream, she shares the building, and she's taken over the whole thing. The projecting ordinance is you're allowed one sign, so she's allowed one projecting sign. So Peacock Keller had a projecting sign, and then a wall sign on the building. So she just wanted to change the Peacock Keller to hers. In the sense of all the ordinances, you can only have the projector, you can't have the wall sign. And I'm thinking, how can I deny her one of the guys she's replacing?
Right,
had?
right.
And
It
to
was
me, I don't think,
pre-existing.
I don't think that really, I don't see anything wrong with
Having
that.
two.
Yeah, it was, and then you see all the business, not all, but a lot of Crappy Jackalope, that one next door, or Nicollet, but, never followed that. So, I don't know if, our sign ordinance is fairly new, I think it,
Yeah, it didn't look, the language seemed like it was written fairly recently.
Yeah, it's
It
not
wasn't
old.
antiquated.
no.
But you, can allow more than one sign if you don't think that that's a problem.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, this is like rural world permit things that come in on that, is like, that was one that came up, like, if she wanted to just have that now, and like, she wouldn't be allowed to have, but I don't think,
But I would limit it,
yeah,
I would limit it to 2 or something like that.
Correct,
I don't
you
want
would, yeah.
50.
no,
why would we want two?
it don't look bad, you go down and look at the Peacock Keller building.
When if there are 2 different people inside, maybe,
Yeah,
like inside the building, maybe someone has the top floor and the bottom floor. And
and And then the pole sign definition is like the minimum between the
Oh, wait,
ground
I'm
level.
sorry, Joe, let me to be,
Yeah.
wait, I'm sorry. You're talking two, why do you have to have two? Can you not have one that has like the one person sign and the other person sign on it?
Yes.
Two separate
Yeah,
signs?
currently, you're not allowed to have one sign. Joe brought up having two,
Mhm.
allowing that, so that's the discussion.
Like you could have a ground sign and a wall sign,
Yeah, you just can't have two on the building.
correct? And I said, you look at that one building that were had two, it don't look out of place.
No.
And then you look down the street, when you do Google Street View, I'm thinking, oh god, most people have these, don't look impressive. And then the other thing with pole signs, I'm going over my shoot from my head.
Yeah.
It was like bottom of the sign to ground is like 20 feet. So
That's-
then
yeah.
it put the pole sign
Yeah, that's too
high.
high, I didn't
So
notice
I
that,
think
I'll check
that
on
should
that,
be-
yeah, that should be lower for downtown.
That doesn't.
You don't want 20-foot signs.
No, it
No.
got me back to, I'm driving through Pine Township and I see a sheet sign at 15 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You could just tell, yeah.
Yeah,
you don't want one that's 40 feet in the air, you know, the bright lights.
It wouldn't fit in.
Yeah,
They think it does, yeah.
yeah,
mhm.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'll look at that too.
yeah, I mean, is there a standard, a good standard or a good ideal for, bottom of the sign 9 feet, top of the sign,
Well, bottom,
15
definitely
feet or
for
something.
projecting sign, you want them at least 8 to 9 feet above above the sidewalk,
Right.
to the bottom of the sign.
right,
From the top, I'm not quite sure, but pole signs, you can definitely limit the height, like, because the projecting sign is, they're gonna put it on the building where it makes no sense, but a pole sign, you don't want to allow 20-foot pole sign.
Right. right, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
asking about, is the pole sign, is there?
Like, 10 feet.
I would say, to be honest with you, I would say that 90% of the signs are wall signs that
Yeah.
I do.
You're really not, again, your real estate, your lots are so, like, the space is so valuable for the building, people aren't gonna take up space that they can't use for a building to put up a pole sign.
Right, but I'm just thinking in the future for the north end, I mean, the development there and.
Yeah, I would limit it to like 10.
Just trying to envision potential future stuff, at the north end, or even from Bower Hill north. Just trying to keep it similar to what we've got at the south.
Dale, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but I think
That's unsanitary. That's unsanitary.
okay, I definitely won't do it then.
Thank you.
I don't, if we're talking about using poles at all, I'm sort of not understanding what the value of poles are. We have an entire downtown right now, everything's on, like a street sign, yeah? Poles.
You're talking like a pole, like building a separate pole just for a sign, or on Main Street.
Yeah, so those are another one you might want to.
We don't
But
need
we
those.
don't have that.
Yes,
We don't need those.
Okay, an example thereof would be,
The bank.
The bank,
but they're not, okay.
They get the
I'm
bank.
talking about, I'm sorry, I'm talking the main drag.
Yes, the bank here has Northwest has a plaza in the back, Bridgeville Plaza.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, there were a bunch of stores back there, so a pole sign would be Northwest Bank and all the little
And
stores
that pole
is on the street.
is on the street.
Is on Washington
I
Avenue.
cannot I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I cannot visualize a sign that has a whole
Well,
bunch
let's
of.
take a walk
it's
after.
huge.
I can't. I mean, I do all the
Yeah.
time, that's one of my ways I walk home. Well, I'm just saying, we maybe need to talk, my personal opinion would be about somebody like that being grandfathered, because I don't think you wanna,
Right,
I don't
but,
think you wanna take that concept and make that available to the extension of downtown Bridgeville.
Well, if we're not permitting big setbacks on new
Yeah,
development.
exactly,
then
so
it'll
if
probably
you-
take care of itself.
right, but, I mean, if a developer comes in on the north end and decides that they're gonna put stuff along Washington Avenue and something back on Carroll Avenue, for instance. They might want a sign on the corner of, what's this road right out here, Washington?
Brookfield.
What's that?
Brookfield?
Yeah, Brookfield, on the corner of Brookfield, saying that, such and such, pole sign there.
There's one right down there for the plaza.
For the
Yeah,
plaza,
the
for
roller rink.
roller rink.
Like 4 businesses in there.
So, I mean, it's
Circle
existing, I'm just thinking for the future
You have
that,
them for
Okay, well,
guided wayfinding.
Yeah, you just don't wanna.
I'm
shoot
visualizing
high.
places like South Fayette's, on the way to Walmart, there's a bunch of retail shops in there. There's a Verizon store, there's a,
It's the same exact thing.
huh?
It's the same exact theory.
Okay, they don't have big signs, do they, or am I just having a complete?
These ones, I would say they're similar, just
Yeah.
smaller scale, because
Yeah.
the plazas are
Right.
small.
I mean, they have them on all the buildings, but I'm not visualizing the sign that says, here's 5 things that are in here already. Boy, I'm not seeing that in my mind's eye at all, okay. Well, let me just say, I think it's a lousy idea downtown, like as tiny as Bridgeville, just saying.
well, I mean, there's existing, so, I mean, we already have some existing.
That
I
doesn't mean
just,
you can't grandfather it and move on, you don't have
Okay.
to let everybody and their mother do something that's,
Or you meet in the middle and just bring them down.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking is, what, does anybody else think?
No, I don't, what I didn't even think you needed it at all, but I remember that you do have one for the back. And I like the idea when you were talking about like, sheets was, you go to town and it's like, they're thinking responsibly, how they're, they don't have like a big sign, it's like, not like you're coming in Breezewood. And,
You can see it from the highway.
you can see it from the highway, we don't want that, so, you could do it. You go into some communities and they might have a little sign where you pull in and it looks the right way. It's not big, it's not, so you could put a height restriction on it, where it's not like a billboard, so.
Put a ground sign in with,
Right,
yeah,
and I would definitely do a height restriction, just to because how many people, the only place you're gonna find something where there's multiple is if they put like a little plaza, which we don't really have any plazas, but I mean.
right now. But I mean,
Right.
this is kind of thinking about future.
Yep. And we have a plaza here, right across the street, and there's multiple businesses there, so you could have a sign like that saying, hey, these Kidry-Knots back there, and, Northwest has a mortgage place, whatever, so you could have something like that.
You got the Norwood one, so the more you think about it, we got a bunch of these.
Yeah, I just think we
Limit the size.
limit the size and, think about
Size and height.
size and height,
Yeah.
okay?
You keeping the one sign per building? Joe brought that up,
Wall sign,
one wall sign.
yeah. So the way the
Right.
ordinance is reads, if you want a projecting sign, you can't have a wall
Wall
sign.
sign, right.
And then you look, it doesn't look out of place to have a projecting sign and wall sign. Because you get Crafty Jackalope, the business next door,
Yeah.
this one, there's several.
Yeah.
The
But
next,
maybe limit the square footage. of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
there will be square footage limits on all the signs for downtown.
Our wall signs are 2 square foot
Two.
for every linear foot of the building,
Right.
and maybe I never run into issues with
I was
that.
gonna say, are there any issues with that, because that's pretty standard.
No, and that's where I think 90% of my sign permits
Yeah.
are then. And they're pretty good, too.
Okay. Height, so currently, the max height is 45 feet, but you do have in your mixed-use district, the allowance to go up to, I think it's 75 feet. For downtown, that's probably not appropriate, so I was recommending a maximum of 45 or 55. There was the one gentleman that had the discussion about, market value and, being able to have 4 floors, to make it good return on investment I've seen 45, 55 in downtowns, that's not unusual for maximum building height. And it's not gonna give you something that is completely out of character with what you currently have.
So like, what we have, 4 stories now, is like mostly, not counting the Bridgeville Towers. The 4 stories, like here on the corner, or 3 stories.
Most of your buildings, I think, are 3, the highest, most of them. You might have 1 or 2 that are, but again, you know, allowing 55 feet is not gonna make it
Yeah,
completely out of character.
55 is 4 stories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because 45, you're probably not gonna get 4 stories, because
No.
you have to have, that's only like 10-foot ceilings, because then you have the space
Yeah.
in between, so you're not getting 4 stories out of 45
Yeah.
feet.
55 would be good.
Mhm. Any other discussion on that?
Say again.
Any other discussion on building?
No, I'm good, 55.
I'm good with it.
The design, oh,
It
go ahead,
doesn't-
sorry.
Does it tie your hands though to, like that fellow did say though, just the return on your investment isn't there on a small building?
He said for 45 feet, yeah. So that's why I was saying you could go 45 or 50. It sounded like people wanted to go up to 55.
Pat?
Can't count the number of times that I've heard people say, Bridgeville has nowhere to build unless you go up. We could only hope that someone would go 1,776 feet high, as they did in downtown New York, with the Liberty Tower. Now, I understand that that's not in anyone's vision, because we envision what we have now. But my hope would be that the Planning Commission would envision the higher density and the higher structures that would bring the people here to our walkable community. We're walkable because we have someplace to go. The people that walk have to have someplace to be. Bridgeville Tower is a good example. Why would you want, assume it didn't exist. Why would you want to say no to building it? Grandview Tower, same way. These arbitrary height standards of 45, 55, 75, I fought for the 75 before the 55. I've always been an advocate of pulling back, allowing a higher standard here. Not that anyone's coming to do it, okay, because you haven't built the rest of the infrastructure to make it happen. But why are you going to constrain yourselves? You realize the only people that this constrains is us. Okay? People don't come here because, well, their height is 55, the density doesn't work, we're done. They don't even think of it. They don't even come to ask you. Why are you doing that? What is the benefit other than keeping the town the same? That's my question. What's the benefit?
You know, that like 100-foot building, I'm thinking, no, that's never gonna come, you know? But the first year I was hired here, there was a guy who was lining up investors to do a 10, 11-story building on Washington Avenue, buy the Arco building, and then buy Mrs. Dreon's building next to the bridge, and make this huge mixed-use building. And was proposing the size of, you know, Bridgeville Towers. So it would come, you know, will it? You know, I just never thought, like, before I was like, no one's ever gonna think about building a 100-foot building in Bridgeville again, you know, but they're out there and they're looking, so that's all. It just took me by surprise that someone was trying to do it, and then just the markets went south and interest rates went high, and then he walked, so that was it.
What would a 100-foot building in that corner look like?
Different.
It's not with their community character, but, which we heard over and over and over and over and over and over and over. But, you know, there's different opinions, and this is a decision that you can make. You know what
I
my
mean, there's
recommendation is.
cities all around, there's major cities all around the country that put height restrictions on their buildings. You Washington DC has height restrictions on their buildings,
Mhm.
and it's a major city, major world city,
Yes, it's not a new concept,
yeah.
not at all.
You know, it's, they're saying, and I don't know, 55, 45, 65 is the, you know, what's the, how high do you look, Zelienople has, but they have 4 or 5 story buildings in Zelienople, I think, in one big building. You know, but it looks appropriate. It's been there for a while.
It fits the character of the,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, you drive down Zeli's like, look at your Main Street, this is what you want, you know, it's, I mean, it's, so, I mean, is it 55? 55 is 4 stories. We want to, I mean, would 5 stories be unrealistic? I don't know. And it's still more than what we have. That'd be what, 65 feet then?
Approximately,
That's about,
I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, it's like trying to keep the character of the community and trying to, you know, be open-minded about the future. So, I don't know, I mean,
55 is 4 stories, and that'd still be taller than, that'd be as tall as anything on Main Street.
okay. We'll just stick with what we got for right now and ponder it some more.
What I'll do is I'll put this all into an amendment, and you can review it and discuss if you want changes made.
Okay.
And then, of course, it'll need to go on to council for they'll be the
That's
final.
true.
This is just a recommendation that you're making to
Yeah.
council, they'll have the final say.
Okay.
The design standards, I did, draft, there's a handout that says sample design guidelines, with today's date on it, one sheet. This is just looking at some of the things people said they liked, at the charrette in terms of how buildings would look. This is looking at, national standards for what the, main streets, downtowns have. Your parking in the rear, outdoor dining permitted with some restrictions. Front facade, oriented toward the main street. Ground floor, at least 50% clear glass windows and doors, things like that. These are just suggestions, things that we've seen in other areas. If you like stuff, we can keep it. If you don't, we can take it out, we can add stuff. This was just kind of based on work in previous downtowns that we've done design guidelines for, what we talked about at the charrette, and in some of our previous meetings. In Pennsylvania, you really, unless you're in an historic district, you really can't get into requiring people to use brick, for instance. Like, that's a little bit iffy in terms of what will pass in court if you're taken to court. These are things that are done in other areas. And I believe this was in your packet.
Yeah.
I did send this
Yeah.
to the guy, yeah. So hopefully you had a chance to look at it.
Yep. Any comments, discussion?
All
So
right,
how will this be done?
so
our
what I'll
current-
do,
No,
Oh, sorry.
design, so
Mhm.
our current design standards are going to be erased?
You can keep them for the mixed-use district if you want.
Okay.
I know some people had some issues with some of the things in there currently, but I'm not amending your mixed-use district, so it would stay the same. These would be added just for the downtown district.
So, like, roof pitch and all that stuff is going away?
That's not in my downtown.
So that would, so the
It
new
would
one?
stay in your mixed use.
Yeah, but the current, so the new district, that would be gone.
Correct.
just saying, like, so let's look at past history. So like if I wanted to build a building all out of glass, remember that came up? So that won't, we won't regulate that now.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
If I want to make a whole building out of shiny glass, like the WDEVE building on Green Tree Hill on Washington Avenue,
Yeah,
now we won't.
that's not in here.
So you're, be up to your, how you wish to make it.
Yeah, so what I have in here is the ground floor, shall have at least 50% of the wall area consist of clear glass and windows and doors.
That's fair.
But if somebody wanted to build an entire building out of glass, this doesn't prevent them from
Okay.
doing that.
And then,
And again, requiring people to use certain materials, I don't think you want to get into that.
no, I just remember when I was on planning commission, the planning commission made a big stink about it, saying, oh, no, you can't allow them to do that. And then the other one was like, if I'm on a hill or in this, I have to match the roof line, but that goes away. 'Cause that was another one.
That, I did not put anything like that in, you won't see that in this.
I feel like those were the only two ever hiccups that I remember.
Yeah, there was a couple others, but
Yeah, but they weren't really,
no,
these were the big ones.
Yeah.
That I remember.
yeah.
Okay. That's definitely.
Pat?
The current design standards, I believe, are in an overlay. They
They
do
could
not.
be, they could be for the,
Yeah.
I think it's for the entire mixed use
Is it
district. though.
entire, are you sure? it's-
I'm sure, because we only have one overlay and it's for the
Okay.
Baldwin Street area.
It's weird because I didn't think that it applied to the whole mixed use area.
It says something about fate, just Washington Avenue or something.
Yeah, and it goes down, it's weird, and what I'm concerning myself with is, if you leave the current design standards for what you're calling the mixed use, it's gonna be part of the mixed use. A different set of design standards, which you're coming up with, for the business district. Now we've got two different sets of design standards in the same ordinance.
And you can
I'm-
remove it, it's just
I'm
my,
again suggesting-
just hold on, you can remove it if you want. My, scope of work is to look at creating a downtown business district for your zoning ordinance. If you wanna remove those from mixed use,
That could be up to us later.
yeah, you can do it, nothing is preventing you from doing that, but that's not part of my scope of work.
That's not your concern.
I have enough to be concerned about. But yes, if you want to, and if, I mean, technically, if it's the will of planning commission and council, as part of this amendment, I can write in there, current design standards are revoked. I mean, that's not gonna, but that, analyzing that and looking at that wasn't part of my scope of work.
But you'll go back before we just strike it with a pen, you'll go through that design standards to make sure we're not getting rid of something that was good.
If you want me to, but again, that would, mine was to kind of look at what.
I already have on this is that there is something weird, right? I'm fairly certain it's hidden in this, not hidden, but it's in this design standards that it's more of zoning versus the design, was that residential apartments should only be on the second floor above or in the back of a commercial space,
I've seen that before.
and that's in the design standards.
Yeah, I've seen that
So
before.
when you can't just strike the design standards, because like, I feel like that's,
Yeah.
we get rid of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I would recommend that you look at those separately.
I think we put that on the agenda on our to-do list for.
No, but I'm just saying though, if you say we're striking all design standards,
Right.
you can't get rid of it.
Right,
Like that
right.
needs to stay,
Right.
it's like a use.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's all. Because that's more of a use thing than a design standard.
Right.
That's what I'm getting, you would think it would be under a use versus design.
Well, I've seen it in the design guidelines just because, I know, I hear what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I have seen it mixed in because it's how they want the building to, like, you're not allowed to have non-residential uses on the first floor. Or, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to have residential uses on the first floor. I have seen that at design standards.
So that's the other reason why I'm saying, please give
But
a
it
look
is-
over versus just striking it, because like that's.
I would recommend striking it. I would say you want to do that as a separate, if you want to.
Yeah, but like for the downtown, like
The downtown.
for the downtown.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm complaining.
Do you follow me now?
I follow you now. Sorry, Joe, it took me a minute. I'm following Mike's train of thought.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
I'm sorry, Brandy.
I was your first mistake.
Yeah, we're not listening to him tonight,
I know.
okay?
That was my first
Bob.
mistake. I hear it,
Okay.
100% Joe. Yeah,
and
yeah.
the design standard.
And you're right, we can put that in. Yeah. Okay, so what I'll do is draft the amendment, without all the legal language. I'll just kind of put the skeleton of it together with the different sections I talked about. When you actually do the amendment, you'll need all the legal language, and we'll fix that later. But for your review of everything, I'll put everything all together in one document for the downtown district, so that you can go through it, discuss it, let me know if there's any changes needed. Once you're ready, you'll need to send it on to council. Once council is ready, it'll need to go through a 45-day comment period, a public hearing, and then enactment by ordinance. That's the process. So I'll get this back to you within the next couple of weeks, so you'll have time to look at it. I heard you may not have a main meeting.
No, I won't be at the
You
meeting.
have a main meeting.
Maybe planning commission or?
Maybe planning commission.
Okay. So yeah, if people just wanna look at it, get any comments, I can come, maybe. Do you know what date it's?
Tuesday, May 27th. Because Monday is
Is
Memorial
Memorial
Day.
Day. I think I can have.
Doing it at 6 again? Or?
Yeah, well, it was advertised through
Through June.
June, so, yeah.
Yeah.
it'll be-
Yeah, I can, either come or be on Zoom, to hear any comments that you have. Alright, so I'll send that to Joe, you get it out to everybody, like I said, next week or two. That'll give you plenty of time to look at everything before your main meeting.
Super.
Okay? Alright. Thank you.
Thank you.
The existing,
Yeah, that's just the votes. The different things got at the meeting.
okay,
So the highlights are just things that got a lot of votes, and that's some of the stuff I put into the design guidelines.
okay.
Using this as well as other, like I said, other downtown research or discussions. I just wanted to give you everything that people said at that meeting, so that you had a chance to look at all of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Moving on here. Thank you, Brandy.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks for having me.
Active transportation, quarterly implementation discussion. Bank Street bump outs.
Under construction.
Okay?
Greg's done. We'll have the curves painted, hopefully within a week.
Okay.
Just increase visibility. We're waiting to according to the contractor. It's been a table item here, is a planting plan. I remember the discussion was the past couple months is, there was one concept that Brandy showed of like a rain garden, just as a nice bump out. We sort of low plants, so keeps visibility optimal. We're hoping to piggyback the planting volunteers and that project to do it there.
Any way to do that, yeah. I mean, do we have what kind of budget?
I didn't say anything, so maybe, I think we have more plants than what we need for down here, don't you think? That's what it's starting to look like.
I mean, we can probably also get donations from somebody. Chris, who's helping us with this project, is,
And we really don't need to go crazy,
Yeah.
just something nice and small in the middle, because, like, we're gonna have cars go into them, you know, and they're new, and go over them, and, so, I don't wanna,
You're gonna,
I'd rather just test
you're
the
gonna
water.
plant
Yeah.
plants
I mean, we could put
on the bump outs?
in
They're
the,
mulch beds, there's two, you know, at Greg, you'll see the two.
No, but
beds.
being seriously, you don't think people are gonna run over them on a regular basis?
Oh, yeah, that's why I said, let's keep it small in the middle, and we can test it out, yeah.
yeah.
I don't think
Maybe
it's gonna
next
be
year
that
we can
bad.
put some kind of nice shrub in there.
It's gonna be like Washington Avenue, you know, we get it once or twice a year, and we can't do without for the fear of one guy doing something once a year.
Justine wants some geraniums in the, she wants to see some. Very serious.
100% against you.
Well, they do well with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
They're low maintenance.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like once people know that they're there and stop running them over, then maybe we can put a couple shrubs in them and just,
Or maybe, becomes a neighborhood project, neighborhood beautification project.
Gray Street versus
Winfield.
Winfield.
it's all,
That's all.
it's
You're
all.
gonna win.
Okay.
So where are we gonna take that? Is that something that we just let like the garden people come together with?
The garden, I think the garden people can work it out.
The garden people are involved. Because I'm shocked, we've got quite a group, you're doing good with that.
Yeah,
There is a lot of people.
I mean, there's been developments, as you know,
Yeah.
but the rest of the group doesn't know what the developments yet.
Okay, well, we'll get to that on the
Yeah.
agenda. Okay, Greg Avenue Steps project update.
We're under construction, the old steps are out, and we're gonna start in orders this week.
I'm against this.
That's your Thanksgiving.
plan.
That's your.
Yeah, I went to Easter dinner and it wasn't brought up once.
I'm gonna ask you.
It wasn't brought up once.
Okay, boss.
I remember that walk in community. Next is the bridge over.
Yep, that's the next one.
Yeah, okay.
We got low-hanging fruit first.
Okay, Bower Hill Crossing project.
Really, there's really no update other than the state's accepting multimodal grant applications in the summertime, so we're working on putting an agreement together to fund it, so. that's
Okay.
where we're at.
Cool. Comprehensive plan project updates, Baldwin Street Pollinator Garden, plantings, Saturday, May 17th, rain date, May 18th. Okay, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so week before last, I guess, Joe, so we have a plan, we've got plans on order for this space. Public Works is gonna turn over a much larger space than the 4 by 25 foot design we had, so that future planning could occur there. So they're gonna turn that over, we're getting dirt and compost and mulch donated, for the project. And then week before last, Joe got a call from the principal of the middle school. They have some kind of cross-functional project happening at the school district that they received a grant for. And so, we already knew that the middle school kids were making some art murals to install into that space. So what I learned last week after talking to the principal was they have $1,000 budget to purchase plants to put into this pollinator garden. So it's a good thing we were carving out extra space on that lot for plants to go. And then their life skills students need a day that they can come and they'll actually do the planting. So they've got kids doing research on plants that attract butterflies, and then they'll need to, so I did let him know that we were putting a native garden in, so I think they're making some help with figuring out, like I gave him some resources and suggested a place where they could order the plants. So they're looking for, some of us to just be available on May 23rd. Are you okay with that date?
I don't know.
Okay. It'll be the Friday after the day that we're gonna start our planting. But they have to get through state testing, so I think that's probably between state testing and end of school year, that's
Melissa, am I understanding we're having this butterfly garden planting thing on the 17th, and some local school children want to do a similar or participate or include stuff on the 23rd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and on the 17th, we'll be planting what's ready. Not all the plants are gonna be ready to pick up and plant. So we've got days scheduled in June,
Saturday, June 7th, with a rain date of,
Yeah, I mean, depending on,
The school thing, I'm not clear on, who will have to be down there, and like, what's,
he told me, he just asked that we have somebody there who can help the kids know where stuff goes.
okay.
So I'm kind of hoping, I mean, I need to reach back out to him, he's had a few days to kind of figure out what they're doing.
Yeah,
Like,
does Justine, like, she aware of that?
yeah, I had sent you and Justine.
I didn't see that one.
Okay, I can
Well,
forward it
that's
to you
the-
again, but yeah, I sent you guys an email kind of with all these
Yeah.
details.
Oh, I know I got that, I didn't see that in that email,
Okay.
about May 23rd. I remember that email had a bunch of stuff, so.
Yeah,
maybe
it was a long, it was a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we can get a list of what they're going to be buying beforehand, we can probably do the same thing that we're gonna do for the May 17th planting and make like little tags. You know, have somebody go around and say, okay, here's where we're gonna dig the holes, here's where we're gonna put the stuff. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to draw a map with it, so it's a little bit more organized, but I
It's
don't,
gonna have to be.
yeah, I just don't know what they're gonna get. So,
It'll be according
it
to.
depends how much time he has to be able to work with us on getting it more organized. So I'll reach back out to him.
19 days,
I know.
19 school days, yeah.
Yeah, I'll reach back out to him this week and just kind of see. And then Joe, you were running Public Works, maybe you work on that this week.
We're gonna do it this week or next week.
Okay.
okay,
There's a lot there, Dale.
there is. Good job.
That's awesome. That's gonna be really
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, they said that, he also said that like they're gonna have, so the kids, I guess at school are building the frames that they'll mount the art in. And they're going to have QR codes on those frames that will, they've got other kids writing poetry. Yeah, and then the QR codes will take you to the poems that these other kids have worked on. It seems like a really big project for them.
Yeah.
Cause he said something, it was like a $6,500 grant. They're buying plants with 1,000 of it, so there's, I mean, I think
And there's
there's
like
arts.
4 mural mosaics.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
The school really came through.
Yeah,
Sweet.
yeah, I mean, we don't know like what the size and what they look like, so we'll have to figure out as we go.
Sure. Cool. Good job orchestrating this whole thing.
But I was shocked, I mean, people signed up that wanna help. Yeah.
Well, and this was one of the top 3 responses on the survey, like we're doing something they asked for us. And
Yes, that's the whole idea, it's like everything, if they ask for it, we're taking direction from what they asked for.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who work at Topgolf want to come and help with this too.
Sweet. Sweet. Okay, anything else? Okay. Shade Tree Commission ordinance has been enacted. Need to establish the commission members.
It seems just from a little bit of conversation here that there's multiple people in the community that's interested, and Jason Ferry was interested, so realizing there's more people willing to step up, we'll promote it and get the word out so that council can start considering who to appoint. And then, because we were thinking that we were gonna have difficulties making appointments, so we said, oh, let's consider the planning commission as de facto members, but I don't think it's gonna be that we need it all.
That was good, that we have more people that we're doing.
Yeah.
So it was like 5 members, and
Some of the plant people might want to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Birthday cleanup. Birthday cleanup, we had 13 people show up at the Borough Building here. Everybody was enthusiastic, we kind of split up to different parks. I'm not sure, I presume that the Public Works guys went out and picked up all the bags and stuff. So,
FYI, Guy and I were a little late to the party, so we went this afternoon down our obligatory and usual railroad tracks and took our bags and our things. have, but when we stopped in to tell the ladies, they were a little verklempt about just leaving them there. So we said, okey dokey.
I don't know about this one.
Yeah. You just left them, okay, we'll run back.
Okay. And I got one other question for Joe. I presume we didn't have any other issues with Earth Day, cleanup issues, or, okay, stray bags anywhere?
That's all I know.
Okay. One last question. Flooding funding.
Uh-huh.
What do we know, what don't we know?
What we do know is that FEMA did take our funding back.
They did pull it
Yeah,
back.
so that's official, so now we've been very aggressive trying to lobby our federal, representatives and senator to reconvince FEMA that that was a poor decision and this project has merit. So we're right now waiting to hear back from their success or not success.
What
Do we
is it?
know why? Is this one of some of the offshoots from Trump's?
Essentially,
What happens to some of the state funding that was potentially done?
that's under contract, that's secure.
Okay. So we're not gonna lose that, but.
No.
Is there any legal course to say, when we put these funds up, we had to spend this much money because this is what we're told to do? Is there a legal course anywhere where?
Solicitor doesn't believe so. It's not dead in water, it's just a
Setback.
It's a big
Big
setback.
setback.
Yeah. It's still getting a lot of attention, so I'm usually not the optimist in the room. But this one here, I'm hopeful. Like we made front page, top of the fold, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette cover today on this issue. So it's getting the attention, and people are seeing it, and people are talking about it, and people are calling the senator's office and the governor, and all those officials, put their word out there. So now we're trying to make sure they stick to that.
Especially if you hear like stuff, these disasters are happening around the country, saying, oh, we should have taken care of these people and stuff. And, here's one that happened years ago, we're trying to fix it.
Yeah, well, I've sent a few letters, and now I'm doing the same thing, picking up the phone and just following up on that. I mean, that's what it takes, is a squeaky wheel.
Since we have here is pretty much daily follow-ups and meeting update. And last update was that Senator McCormick's staff setting up a meeting with the FEMA administrator. And we're waiting to hear back the results of that.
Thank you. Public comment. John Q. Public, do you have?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Your name, address, and Pat DeBlasio, 447 Washington Avenue.
So you're living now?
That's where I was living. I've been living there. 44 hours. I call that living. So that it doesn't get past, this isn't the main thing I wanted to talk about. The main thing I wanted to talk about is the North End development. But I did want to comment on the bump outs, or the calming, etc. I've said many times, I walk and I drive, and the idea of taking back our streets, I've concluded, is really misapplied, especially when it's applied to arterial roadways. It is something that we as a government, as a community, say to people that I believe misleads them. And when you take a sidewalk and you put it into the street, which is somewhat what we've done here, I didn't quite envision how far out it was going to come, but that was my mistake. When you put a sidewalk into the street, you expose pedestrians to more danger, not less. What you've done is you've made it harder to drive, and I thought, let me try and see how the walking goes. Now, I normally don't cross it, Greg, but I made it a point to, crossing. I don't find it to be particularly beneficial as a pedestrian. And that makes me sad, because I really had held out a whole lot of hope for those. I really thought that they would do much more than they are doing. So, as a driver, I find them to be, it reduces the chance of, the margin of error before you run into something. As a pedestrian, it doesn't really make me safer. Worse yet, it gives that false imprimatur. And this is the broader concept that I'm trying to point out. When we as a government tell people that it is safe to be in the street, to cross the street, that the street is a shared space, that motor vehicles that weigh thousands of pounds are going to share their space with you that isn't even wearing neon, that is not an accurate statement. Pedestrian motor vehicle deaths are increasing, and I think the answer is to make clarity that pedestrians need to not walk into the street unless they're able to get across it. And drivers should not go on the sidewalk because they don't belong there. And when we put the two together as we have, we sort of push things in slightly wrong directions. But I'm open to it. Now, I thought it would be much better than it is. Who knows? Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens, right? Now, for what I really wanted to talk about, the North End development.
Wait a minute, before you, I just
Sure,
have a question.
please.
How often do you walk across that road?
I walk across it probably 2 or 3 times a month because I'm trying to do something, maybe a little less or more depending on the season.
Okay, because we walk across it probably
Yeah.
2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And
Are you finding it?
I have had no problem getting, people slow down. Here's what I used to do, step off the curb and give them the evil eye.
Yeah.
If you keep coming, I will just stand right in front of your,
And
and they would finally slow down, but I don't have to do that anymore because of the bump out, which is
Yeah.
awesome because it's there, everybody's already slowed down, I get to go across the street, so just FYI.
People see.
That's my problem with it, is this
Why would it be a
attitude.
problem?
Well, here's my problem. It's the attitude that, I used to get out there, I give them the evil eye, and they need to slow down, and they need to stop. The street belongs to cars. It's not the driver's job to make it nice and easy for the pedestrian to cross. It's the pedestrian's responsibility to make sure that they've got a clear path. If I did that as a driver, if I make a left turn in front of somebody else, I was always taught as a driver, if you're making a left turn, you're supposed to do it so that the other car doesn't have to slow down. Not, oh, he's got to give me a little bit of room because think of it in the terms of a driver. You don't make a left in front of somebody and cut them off. You put your turn signal on, you make sure that you're not cutting off, and that may mean you're waiting a long time. As pedestrians, we as a government have given Bitsy's point of, hey, you're supposed to let me cross in the crosswalk. You're supposed to let me cross. And
Yield
that's,
right of way.
and what was that?
Yield right of way.
Yield right of way to pedestrians in crosswalks.
Yes.
And that's,
Yes.
that's what we're supposed to do. We yield right of way to pedestrians in the crosswalks.
Yes.
And we allow pedestrians to be dead right. As you give them the evil eye and they run you over, Bitsy, I will mourn for you. Okay? My point
Stop.
is,
That's completely facetious, A, and completely stupid, B, because I'm not gonna stand there and let them frickin' run over me.
But people
I can
do
stop
that.
them from 2 or 3 car lengths by stopping, making sure that they see me as I am walking across this road. So it's not, you're making either a mountain out of a molehill, or you're doing something like that, if I can think of the correct analogy from my parents' age. You're doing it, whatever it is. Stop.
I'm pointing out that while you may be more practical and not being dead right, there are a lot of people that are listening to what we're saying and are. Especially, and that's what I was looking at on National Traffic Highway Safety Administration stuff. It is amazing the incidence of inebriated walkers that are involved in pedestrian fatalities. Okay? Again, I don't know whether or not our message of cross here, or it's safe, or, don't, that the driver's gonna stop for you is resonating with pedestrians, but to the extent it is, it's dangerous. It's dangerous for people to think that they can walk across the road and that the car's going to stop for them.
We have a lot of inebriated
Yeah,
walkers.
but it's not a matter of the car's gonna stop for you, they're designed so that the car sees the pedestrian better.
But that's why I thought it had
So
some merit.
it reduces the crossing, and
And it
then the
reduces
cars,
the distance.
the cars coming up the street can see you versus you behind a parked car.
Right.
And in reality, the bump out's the size of a parked car or truck that would park there, for some John Q. Public parked a Suburban there.
Right.
It's the same size.
Right.
And it was funny, is that, I was telling the members of the planning commission before you came in, on Saturday, I was at Cerasic's hardware store, and the guy turns around and tells me, not hello, you gotta paint them bump outs? And I said, yeah, they're still under construction, we have to let the concrete dry before we put down paint, but it will be done this week. And he goes, I really have to slow down going through there, I almost hit them because I had to slow down. And Jason said it very eloquently, he goes, well, they did their job, you slow down. So,
I understand. What I'm pointing out is that, again, that was the idea of what we're going to do is we're going to slow the cars down to give room for the pedestrians. I'm coming back and saying, streets belong to cars. Cars shouldn't have to slow down. It's pedestrians that should have to be careful as they walk across.
I don't think
Or
that's-
And I know, that's why I'm pushing it, because I know this planning commission unanimously believes the other way around.
No,
There's complete streets,
Yeah,
and that the
yeah.
whole premises is a complete street
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah.
And
It's
everybody should be
sharing-
able to share the environment. It's
Yes.
not- That's what, that idea that we can safely share pedestrians, bikes, and cars is something that I really question. Because I don't think that they can be easily shared. Pedestrians are vulnerable, especially pedestrians who think that they're supposed to be in the street.
You go,
At least-
you go to some communities and you stand in the crosswalk and everybody stops.
I do that.
But it doesn't happen here.
Oh,
It's,
Not most of the time, but some of the time.
Well, yes, and so, with the active transportation plan, it's all about trying to change things to make this community more safer for pedestrians, for walking and biking and that type of thing. So that's where we're at.
Well,
So,
I think it also, if it's calming traffic, then people are blowing down Bank Street at 45 miles an hour. So to your point, you may not be stepping out into the intersection in front of a car, but by the time you get in the middle of the road, you are, because people are speeding so fast that they come up on you. And that is real.
It is very real, and that's very much my point. Again, Washington Avenue or Bank Street, it is very real. And the answer is, don't walk out into the street. As my grandmother told me, don't go out into the street. Don't go out into the street. Don't do that. Because the cars are coming down and they'll run you over. And that,
we got you.
yeah, to the north end. It's been several months, it's not on your agenda, and I would again encourage the planning commission. We're looking at FEMA and the flood control. Ultimately, the development of the north end, the next step is going to happen. Assume for a moment that we are, and I'm hopeful, and I'm very hopeful, okay? Assume for a moment we got our flood control. We still have the development, we still have the north end to work on. And I'm not seeing, I don't think you're doing something, I hope you're not doing something, secretly, I don't think you are. So if it's not on the agenda, in my mind, it's not happening, and that's why I wanted to speak tonight.
Okay.
Because it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah?
Hey, quick update on North End. I don't really have anything agenda worthy, but just a quick update is that the proposal we gave the state legislators back in the fall, I sent that to PennDOT and the SBC last month. And I had a very quick and responsive response from Rich Fitzgerald, the director of the SBC, and the PennDOT district executive.
both personally called here after reviewing them. And Rich Fitzgerald said, to get this on the tip, we need to start pushing this with the county executive and the county director of public works. They have the votes on the SPC commission to get it on to the tip, the long range. So I sent the proposals to both Sarah Murado and the public works director last week. I talked to the PennDOT district executive. He found merit in the proposal we sent, and he said, I gave it to his traffic engineers to do a more in-depth analysis of the Route 50 concept for its constructability. So at least it's on both radar, and at least there was interest on both those agencies to at least give it more reviews. So thank you, Joe.
And see, there are things that happen behind the scenes just because it's not on the agenda.
That was what I alluded to as well, Dale, is it should be on the agenda because now we know. Now we know what's going on.
We know nothing, they're looking into it. There's nothing concrete.
I know there's nothing concrete. Nothing is concrete until it's actually poured.
And you wait for it to dry.
But we know that something's moving. And by the way, what's the plan?
Nothing's moving. There's nothing moving. They said to go do things.
Okay, so
There's nothing moving. There's nothing to report.
So what is the proposal that you sent to Ken Amarado and the county executive? What is the proposal?
The same thing has been talked about. We need to,
That's 10
10
years.
years.
it's gonna take, people come to the table, and now we're just trying to get into the.
Yeah, but trying to move it forward onto the tip.
Correct. It's really not a discussion thing, it's just an update.
Good, thank you. I appreciate the update. Look forward to more. Thank you much.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. The planning commission have any other issues to bring forward? Going once, going twice, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Need a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.